they're filling this out, there are times where they decide, you know what? I think the activity I put at number 4 is more like my number 2. They don't have to erase everything and then fill it back out again. They can just click those arrows and they can toggle and move their activities around a little bit. So sometimes they've done a great job with the descriptions, but when they sit down with Mrs. Michaela, Mrs. Sandoval, and myself, we might say, you know what? It might be better if you clump your activities that are similar together. So, you know, baseball is an example here. So, yes, you play baseball, varsity baseball here, but you also play on a travel team too. So why don't we just put those two things together instead of them seeing baseball once and then scrolling down and seeing it again later on. Let's just put those two things together. So we have those conversations with them. Sometimes the students are really involved with, I don't know, computer programming. So they're part of our computer programming team. Plus they took that computer programming class over at Lawrence Tech over the summer. And they have their own blog on programming. They're a blogger and they have their own kind of like blog page on programming. So instead of spreading those things out, why not let's clump those things together so when they're trying to get a good picture of who you are or what you're interested in, they're going to see those things right there. So we'll bring those things up with the students as they're filling out their activity section. So again, this is an area where we don't want them to rush through it. We want to make sure that they're taking the time, being as clear as possible, and getting as much information as possible in there. Now, as we said at previous conferences, I think a lot of our students feel pressure because they have 10 slots here that they can fill out, but they need to fill out all 10. Colleges are looking for depth, not breadth, okay? So they would much rather have a student that's involved with 3 or 4 things, but they do those things really, really well, and they're really, really engaged with those things, than having a list of 10 things that they're kind of moderately involved with. That, yeah, I've shown up to that meeting now and then. I volunteer there once a year. Those kind of things. It's not that those don't belong on here. We'll have that conversation with each individual student about what belongs on there and what doesn't. But the pressure shouldn't be to get 10 things on there. The pressure they should really focus on what do they do consistently, what do they love, and what do they do well. That's what we want on here, okay? So again, I'll have a student will say, you know what, one time I went to a soup kitchen with my neighbor, should I put that on my activities list? I would argue probably not, because you did it one time, so they're going to see it. So what you've done now is you put it on there. You said I did this one time, but they're going to be like, well, why don't you do it again? And then again, and then you did it once. You're like, man, that didn't do anything for me. So let's not even open that can of worms. Let's not put that on your activities list. Okay. So depth over breadth. Okay. To me, and I think for college, definitely for colleges, that tends to be. Would you agree with this?
Oh yeah, 100%. We talk a lot about this with the students, and I don't know that it needs a lot more airtime, Josh, but students, I think they get a little panicky sometimes when they see 10 lines on the application for these extracurriculars, and in their mind they only have 3 or 4 or 5 really meaningful things, and so they start, just to fill up the space, they think they should put, the 2 hours that they, spent at a pancake breakfast or something at their church, or, the one time they babysat or something for a neighbor. That's just not how this works. And so we talked them off the ledge a little bit about, again, the number of things versus the depth, and the meaningfulness and hours spent and that sort of thing. So I think that eventually they come around to our way of thinking, and but I think this is just a great conversation for students who are in the 9th and 10th grade, because as a parent and certainly us as the college counseling professionals, we can really start to talk with students about stopping short of saying passionate about. You've all heard me say, talking with students about passion when they're young is weird. Just the buy-in should be, I feel really good about this service thing. And I'm not gonna just do it one time, but I'm gonna look for ways to do this over and over again, and more consistently, and, bring a little something more to it. And when they get a little older, then they get a little higher up in class standing, or they get a little older in age, then sometimes they take on a little more responsibility, they take on a leadership role, they bring more students, to the project, or they bring more experience, more excitement to the project, and that's all a beautiful thing, because then that translates to exactly what Josh is talking about. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. The last thing I'll say about activities is we've all had this in the junior year, and sometimes even at the beginning of the senior year. The students will ask us, well, should I start a club? No, not especially not when you're, if you think you're doing it just because you need to plug some more stuff in here and say, look, I started something, no, that's not the reason to do that. So 9 times out of 10, my answer to that is no. The only time it's yes is if this is something they've really thought about for a long time, and there's something that has really sparked a passion, or interest or something in that area. And they're thinking, okay, I think our school, there is a void. We need to fill that void with something. And so I'm going to start a club. The key with if they're going to start a club, especially as an upperclassman, is to make sure that they're doing it for the school, and they're doing it, and they're going to bring along some of these underclassmen. They're going to make sure that club lasts a while. That club has some legs. I can't tell, in my 13 years here, I can't tell you how many clubs have just come and gone. They've been around for a year because that one upperclassman started it, they did it to look good here, and then they had no succession plan in place. They didn't hand it off to an underclassman, and just poof, it disappeared. The college at the end of the day doesn't necessarily know that, but it's just, when we're talking about sincerity, and really, is that going to be a game changer for a college university? Typically no. Okay, so that's the cynic in me. When the student asks me, hey, should I start a club? My knee-jerk right away is almost like, oh my gosh, no, not another one. But I'll hear them out, and sometimes they actually do. We've had some really unique ones started over the past few years, and actually I think they are contributing well to our campus community here. But it can't just be because I think I need to do it. It needs to be because there's something behind that I'm really, really fired up about. All right, talking about being fired up about things. Essays, this is going to be the last section on the main general part of the common application. So this is the student's opportunity to really go in depth about something that's meaningful to them, to tell a story, we're going to have a lot of coffees, a lot of conversations about essays. I'm not going to dig too much into this. This is where it's going to be. Now, on the common application, this one writing section here, this piece of writing goes to every common app school that they apply to. So this should end with, and that's why I want to attend Notre Dame. This needs to be a broad, general essay that every school is going to see. I think really this is the most important one, because this is the one that's going to reveal something about their character, about their personality, about who they are, and what's meaningful. Okay? It doesn't need to be I cured cancer. It doesn't need to be a tearjerker. I've had students who have, they've sat at the desk, at the table in my office, in tears themselves, upset that nothing bad has ever happened to them, so what am I supposed to write about it? And I'm like, let's spin this around. I think that's a good thing, right? I think that's a good thing. So again, we're going to spend, you're going to hear a lot about essays when you come to our programs and things like that, so I'm not going to do that right now. But this is where it's going to end up on the main part of the common then down here, it does have a couple other questions, so I'm going to point these out. Disciplinary history. So this is something that we do ask students to take seriously and to be honest about. Things happen. These are teenagers. Things happen. Colleges know that. When I worked at the University of Michigan, and Ted Spencer was the director at the time, and when we would go through disciplinary situations with students, students that were honest and self-reported certain situations that had happened, the first thing out of Ted's mouth would be mischief or malice. What was it? So that, when I explain that to students, normally they take a sigh of relief, because you know what? That one time I did something stupid and I got in trouble for it. The vast majority of the time, especially here in this community, it falls under the mischief category. They were just being a teenager. Things happen. It's okay. What matters is, what do they learn from it and how do they write about it? So if they click yes on there, there's a little box that pops up that says, please explain. And so we will help them with those statements. We will make sure that they're coming across as, I've learned something from this, okay? Not making excuses, not saying it wasn't fair that Bobby didn't get caught and I did, anything like that. Colleges don't want to hear that. They just want to hear what happened, what you learned from it, and it's going to be fine. At the end of the day, these things typically don't ding our students, okay? Now, on occasion when I worked at Michigan, the answer was malice. Like, you know what? If someone's willing to do something like that, do we want them on our campus, okay? So, I mean, use your imagination of what those kind of things are. So, there's a reason why colleges ask this question. We expect our students to be honest about it, and we will help them with that portion of the application, okay? So, I do want to point that out because, again, for many students, they get to check no, and do right along. But there's a few students that have to check yes. We'll help with that. Then the very last section is a 650-word section where they can put any additional information. So students have used this in creative ways over the years because, again, colleges are limiting how much you can send or what you can send. So this gives them an opportunity. Let's say in the activities section, the student was really frustrated that they couldn't talk more about their research that they were doing along with the professor over at Wayne State. They really wanted to talk more about it. Or they did start a club, despite me grinding my teeth when they first said they were going to start a club. But it actually turned out really well, and did a lot of cool stuff here on campus, and a lot of students are energized and involved with it. But that little section in the activity section doesn't allow them to explain much about that. They could then, in this additional information section, expand on that a little more if they wanted to. Another really good use of this section is if a student has missed time, extended time in school due to illness, or if there's something on their academic record that is inconsistent with the rest of it, and there needs to be some explanation, this is where that should go. When it comes to those kind of things, let's say sophomore year was a tough year because there was a significant event with the family, they were really, really ill, which was totally out of control, they were hospitalized. Things happen, right? Life happens. This is a great place for them to explain that. The key here is if a student is talking about something regarding their academic record, it's to their advantage to make sure that their counselor is aware that they're talking about that and that we echo that within our letter of recommendation. Because, if a student's just saying something and floating it out there, but no other part of the application, especially no other person is citing that, sure, these days maybe there could be a little bit of skepticism. But if we're talking about it as well, we hint at, we allude to that without going into detail, but just kind of know, yeah, there was something that happened that the student should talk, feel like should be talking about it. This is where that should go. We help students with those statements as well. Okay. So this section can be used creatively, or it doesn't have to be used at all. But it can also be a really, really useful tool when students truly do have extenuating circumstances that should be cited in some capacity. What that allows is, if something tough happened in their lives that did affect their academic record, they don't have to then use one of their essays to explain it. Because sometimes the students say, you know what, yeah, I need the college to know this, but I don't want to focus so like this really important essay that's trying to get the heart of who I am, and what I'm all about, and what's important to me. And I'm talking about how I was sick and it was tough to make up all my coursework. I don't want to waste my essay talking about that. So that can go to this section. Okay? All right. So, all of these individual categories, profile, family education, testing, activities, and that main Common App essay we're writing, those go to every single Common Application school that they apply to. So that list that was at the very beginning of the dashboard, as the student applies to these schools, all that information will be grabbed and sent to these individual schools when they press that. Okay? But these schools will also have unique questions that they will want to answer. So let's use on this list. I will use this one for a while. Let's use Duke. So Duke is going to have its own questions. It's going to ask about start term. So, certain schools allow students to apply at different terms. So, you're applying for the fall, you're applying for the spring term, summer term, what year, they're asking for that. They're also going to ask for admission plan. So this could be, this is defaulted because of the time of year right now, but Duke is a school that offers early decision and regular decision. So it's going to ask the student, which one are you applying to? Early decision is a binding agreement. So in August, right now it's January, so I no longer have the opportunity to apply early decision, but if this were in the summer or fall, when they're applying, they can select that early decision option. What that means is the student is committing themselves to that school, saying you're the only school, private school, the only school I'm applying early decision to, only private school I'm applying to early at all. And if you admit me, I will withdraw all of my other applications and I'm going to your school. So that's a huge commitment. Some of our students utilize early decision because there is some strategic advantage behind that. But some of our students say, you know what, I know it enhances my odds, but I need to shop a little bit. I'm not, I think I like that school, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd like to look for other scholarships. I'd like to keep some doors open. So early decision is not always the right thing for every student, even if the school offers it. So that would be one of the options. Early action. There's a lot of early action schools out there, including schools like the University of Michigan, where the students receive their decision by December, but they're not bound or committed to that school. They don't have to withdraw other applications once they receive that acceptance. So slightly, there's a little less strategic advantage with that because you're no longer guaranteed yield for that college or university. But the timeliness of it, you get that decision earlier on, which is great. The school knows that, well, they took the time to apply to us early, so they must be somewhat interested in us. So that can help as well. And then finally, there's regular decision here. Those are the applications that are due typically between January 1st and February 1st. And those decisions come out typically sometime in the middle of March. So we have a number of students who maybe they went through an early plan and they got some, they didn't get some, they feel like they need to add some additional schools. They put those in regular decision. So the college on this page, on that first page, for the general questions, Duke is asking what term, what method of application, are you applying for financial aid or not? There are schools that are need blind, there are schools that are need aware. And so schools want to know, hey, are you going to go through the need-based process? Some schools ask about things like ROTC. opposite. Sometimes they'll ask about different programs, fee waivers, did you participate in certain summer programs? So colleges have the ability to ask a lot of their own unique questions on these pages that wouldn't make any sense to other colleges. That's why it's in this section rather than the general section. Academics. So this is where each college university has their own system, the way they organize their academic departments. So schools like the University of Michigan would ask you college of literature, science, and arts, or are you applying to that, are you applying to engineering, are you applying to music, theater, and dance, are you applying to the STEM School of Art and Design, are you applying to nursing? So they need to, and they're going to review differently depending on which of those programs you apply to. And sometimes there's additional requirements that come along with those. So if you're applying to music, theater, and dance, if you notify that on your application, they're then going to follow up and give you instructions to set up an audition. For the STEM School of Art and Design, when you put that on there, it will give them the instructions to set up their slide room account where they can upload their portfolio of all the work that they've done. If you put engineering, they're going to put a little more emphasis on your math and science curriculum as they evaluate your application. So the department and the program in which the student applies to at some schools can change the way that they look at the student's application. So they're going to ask that in the academic section. Contacts. So schools do this differently. Some of them, just for internal purposes, to try and figure out which of their multiple marketing campaigns and programs are most effective, they'll ask you why you chose to apply to their school. What factors led you to apply? Have you attended one of their on-campus visit programs? Did you meet with the representative when they came to your high school? Have you attended one of the local area receptions that we've had? Did an alum encourage you to apply? They'll ask you all those kind of things. That's going to have zero impact on whether the student's admitted or not. That's more for them to gather information, to figure out where are we wasting our money doing programming and what's effective, okay? So again, students, when they're going through this process, they're anxious, they're nervous, they're overanalyzing every little question that they answer on here, and they worry, oh my gosh, did I do this section right? This is an area where I can tell them, look, just be upfront and honest. They're just trying to learn a little bit about what's effective as far as their programs and whatnot. Sometimes, however, in this context areas, it'll also ask for additional legacy. So, do you have a grandpa or grandma who graduated from our school? Do you have a uncle that graduated from our school? That wasn't captured, if you remember, in the initial family section. So if they care about it, they would ask about it here. If they don't ask about it here, they don't really care about it. When I worked at Michigan, if you have an aunt or uncle that graduated, you can mention that in an essay somewhere, I suppose, but really they didn't ask for that information, nor did they want to know that information. It just didn't help them make decisions at all. Now, if that uncle has a name on a few buildings on campus, they'll find